Great. So if you have questions or reflections or comments, please don't hesitate to share your ahas and questions within our group. And you can also, of course, touch base with your integrative fertility clinician for additional support or specifics around your personal diagnostics or results, or if any of these have sparked questions for you. We'll now go into the second part of our discussion for this class. So we are in Module 6, Thrive, and we are talking about clearing inner obstacles from the medical to the mindful. So now we'll focus on our Part 2, the heart and soul of successful fertility. And when we're looking at the heart and soul of successful fertility, we are looking at conscious, subconscious, and superconscious factors. And this would also be known as our thoughts and emotions, which are occurring at the conscious level. We become aware of them. To some extent, we choose them, particularly our thoughts. The subconscious refers to belief level, and the superconscious refers to faith or the intuitive level. So what causes stress? If we're going to get a handle on releasing stress from the fertility journey so that we can have a clearer path to conception, we're going to have to understand where it's coming from. When we think of our emotional factors as they relate to fertility, the stressors come from three main areas. Situational, of course. For example, you come into work one day and your boss is completely losing it, or there's an emergency, or the fire drill was pulled, or there's a big spill and you had to clean up a big mess, or you're in a traffic jam and you're late for an important presentation or meeting, or the situation of showing up for difficult medical appointments where you're hearing news that you weren't expecting, or you're having an actual IVF. Social, so this has to do with our spouse and our friends and all of our relationships, including the programming or imprint that was created by your experiences in your original family growing up as a child, and any interactions that you might still have within those dynamics. It could be past traumatic events within a relationship or another person in your life, or with our significant others, because we're in close interdependent relationships and we're designed for that. It's also where we are more vulnerable. It's because we have intimate connections that we depend on each other, and so there can be significant pressures within your within the whole social sphere here. And with ourselves, there are responses and reactions and dynamics that you're experiencing right now that are connected to your relationship to and with yourself. Your ability to feel well within your fertility journey is interdependent on how you feel about yourself, your value, your worth, and your sense of resilience to stand and move within a journey that contains many aspects beyond your direct control. And your relationship with yourself and how you talk to yourself is very, very important. Your fertility journey, however that's been and wherever you may go within this, is an experience that does ask you to go deeper in connection with yourself. And that's why we talk about bringing our best self to the journey. You're literally conceiving of and birthing your bigger next version of who you are, even as you become a mother or before you become a parent. And there can be a lot to that for us, right? So part of why there's this roller coaster of emotions of infertility and it's so intense and draining is that our brains are ascribing meaning to what's happening, and that meaning is 95% derived from the subconscious. So what we're going to do in the exercise that I have given you is to plot your individual stressors around the diagram, and we're just bringing them into the conscious here. So where they best correspond to those 3 sources of stress, and I just want you to plot them and then kind of pause there. You can go and do that now if you'd like. But take all the different things that are stressful right now and see if you can correspond them to one of those 3 sections: situational, social, self. You can go and do that now, and you can pause the video and come right back when you're ready. The next exercise is going to be looking at sentient self-talk. What is self-talk anyway? Self-talk is those often repetitive thoughts that come from ourselves. They may be mirroring someone else's words. They may be mirroring a belief. Again, about 95% of these are autopilot, and they're automatic, and we're not really consciously choosing them. And they might sound something like this: I'm never going to have a baby. Oh, I don't even know why my husband stays with me anymore. There must be something wrong with me. Oh, my life is so stressful right now, and I can't handle it. When you're working with your exercise, I'd like you to notice the emotion that's corresponding with each of those self-talk statements that you catch yourself saying to yourself. And usually these are the negative ones, and that's what we're going to be focusing on now, because I want you to get some freedom from them. In the exercise too, if you can notice the emotion or the feeling that's corresponding, then also rate the intensity out of 10. So 0 being none of that emotion at all, and 10 being the maximum you can imagine. Give it a number. The minute that you have the experience of naming an emotion and giving it an intensity, it externalizes that emotion. So it's no longer taking over your life. This means you're going to have more choicefulness return to you regarding your thoughts, okay? Now, a lot of the themes that come up in the fertility journey are very difficult. And I've listed some of them here, the ones that I see more frequently. And, so body blame is where it's difficult to accept your body, given that it's not doing what you'd expect it to do, what other bodies seem to be able to do. This is a really common and shared experience with fertility challenges. And one exercise we're going to draw from my friend Dr. Carrie Fullerton's work in the Diet Rebellion is to choose to applaud your bod instead. So if you have found yourself hating your body, resenting your reproductive system, or thinking repeatedly that your body's flawed or that your body's failing you, then I'd like you to repeat the exercise that we just outlined, writing out your feelings and add your sensations in the body. So what does that feel like? What is the quality of sensation? Is that heaviness? Is that a tightness? Is that a racing, pounding? Is that a tingling, squeezing, for example? And rate their intensity out of 10 on the side of the page on the left side of your page or your notebook. And then on the right side, I'd like you to write out at least 10 ways that you're grateful for your body, for what it has done or is already doing for you. So it could be like, I'm grateful for my body for bringing me to my clinic appointments. I'm grateful to my body's patience with uncomfortable procedures. I'm grateful for my body for me showing up. I'm grateful for my period because it means I have a brand new chance to rebuild my potential to conceive. And it means that I have a hormonal cycle. I'm grateful for my ovaries for preparing an egg for ovulation every month. I'm grateful for my partner for standing by me and drawing closer instead of having this be an experience that pulls us apart, etc. Okay, so you can see how these evidences are going to start to reprogram your nervous system's response to your automatic thoughts, so that they aren't as automatic, negative, or harmful. In fact, you're creating an environment, again, a microenvironment inside of you that's more receptive to procreation. It's more going to be in the parasympathetic nervous system instead of in the sympathetic nervous system overdrive. Some of the themes that you might find come on board for you, and I'm going to give you a few ideas here, include truth. Once you see a certain aspect of something, you gain wisdom. You'll never unsee that truth. Growth, so having a growth mindset, meaning we're going to use this opportunity to get to know ourselves more and become stronger people, more resilient, and to have wisdom to share with the next generation when we do become parents. You can grow together as well. You can allow stressful experiences to allow you to come closer together as a couple. Self-awareness, trust, love, authenticity, commitment, confidence, resilience, health and well-being, your divine design or your destiny for your life and receiving that, gratitude, peace and acceptance, as well as community are all values that can come through and that I've seen a lot of clients embrace and that can help to make things feel more positive and less stressful. So you can refer to those exercises in the handouts that I have provided for you and explore those whenever you're ready. The sooner the better. So when we're talking about dealing with the aspect of mindful in contrast to medical, I think the first step is always going to be to do with awareness. So I want you to consider, now that you've looked at that reflection exercise, how many times lately have you said something to yourself that you would never ever say to someone else? How many times has this happened today, this week, or maybe even throughout your fertility journey, maybe thousands of times? It's almost like we're hypnotizing ourselves towards something very negative or very, very mean and wrong that that we come up from somewhere that we're saying to ourselves. So just take a minute to remember that for a moment, something that you may have said to yourself recently on a self-talk level that you would never say to someone else. And how does it feel to be on the receiving end of that comment or criticism or belief statement? How's that feeling in your body, and what sensation comes up, and where is it? And how do you feel this could be affecting your fertility journey and definitely your quality of life? And as we go into this next section, we'll talk about, okay, well, what can we do about that instead? What choices do we have to make it feel a whole lot better, as well as improving our overall nervous system state and our hormonal health? So when we're looking at navigating uncertainty, there was a research study done by a group called, a researcher called Sweeney and a group that they pulled together. And they looked at a theme of navigating uncertainty while waiting for a baby. And this was done in a cohort of people who were struggling with fertility issues and trying to conceive. And it was noted that their level of distress around trying to conceive was greater if they had lower levels of optimism. So if they were more pessimist versus optimist, and if they had a certain level of intolerance of uncertainty, so being not comfortable with the idea of uncertainty, and if they had a lower level of resources in their life, so that social resources like friendships they could lean on or people they could talk to, emotional resources, so tools to work through emotional experiences, cognitive resources, and these were reflected in the words that they used to try to cope with their trying to conceive situation. And there was also more distress associated with placing greater importance on conception versus being more ambivalent with or okay with not conceiving, of course, and who had a lower risk of infertility. So more distressing and stressful if there were any of the major factors at play that made it greater risk that a couple may not be able to conceive. So something that was identifiable for that couple medically, which is also to be expected that would be more stressful. And then they had more stress in their journey if they had lower ratings on searching life for meaning. So in this diagram that I have given you, I'm going to give you a bit of an understanding visually of how our brains kind of work in terms of creating a sensation of stress when we're in situations with varying levels of certainty and control. So when we are in this lower quadrant here where there's uncertainty and a lack of control, we tend to not feel so good. So in the idea of conceiving, there really isn't a lot of certainty, and on the surface there isn't a lot of control. And so that's going to land us in this lower quadrant, and we really do not feel good as human beings ever when we have neither control nor certainty. That doesn't feel good, right? You can imagine, you can probably just feel the energy of that right now. When we're feeling out of control, we don't have personal control over whether we get pregnant, right? And we have some certainty, so meaning an increased risk of conceiving, not risk, I should say, an increased chance of conceiving, and factors that seem to be improving over time that we can measure, then our nervous systems start to feel less stressed. If we look at having a low level of certainty, okay, over whether this fertility journey will be successful in the way that we want, and we feel more in control, this also reduces our level of experience of stress. And when we look at having more certainty, so you're seeing like factors that you can take control of, that will increase your chances, and or you're seeing that you have a low risk for infertility, for example. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get pregnant. And then you create more control. So this could be anything from being proactive about the clinical team whom you work with. It could be about getting a really good self-care regime happening. It could be about getting the right type of thermometer. You know, we're looking more into fertility thermometers now, and maybe that makes you feel more in control because you're getting good data. Or maybe you're taking control of the blood work, similar, like along the lines of what we've been teaching you here. All of these factors can really help to change the experience of stress in a situation that we do not have 100% certainty, nor do we have 100% control. Okay, and that's definitely the case with fertility. You could consider something like adoption to give you a lot more sense of control, but even there we don't have 100%. But you can increase it by filling out the documents and initiating an application. And if your goal is to become a parent, that's one way of adding a lot more control to the situation, and certainty about being a parent. But when it comes to conception, there are factors that we can increase our chances. However, if we could 100% control that, we would not be having this conversation right now, and you'd be pregnant. So sitting with uncertainty and dwelling with that is a fact of life when it comes to fertility. And even if you're using what's considered the best available technology like IVF, as we've mentioned, there isn't a guarantee, even with that, of a baby as a result of any particular cycle or series of cycles. You can't try harder to get pregnant. You can't effort your way there. You can't buy your way to success. And it all just defies the reality of almost everything else we've ever accomplished that we have valued or wanted deeply in our lives so far, right? This is very challenging. And the reason I mention it is just to acknowledge and honor what your nervous systems have been up against as you go through your fertility journey. It's huge. You're in a bravery training camp, and you may not feel like you signed up for that voluntarily, but here we are together in it. And the aspects that make it more manageable in research studies around fertility stress were whether they had emotional wellness and some tools and supports around them to help them, social connections, finding meaning, using words that were more positive or constructive or creative, so their language choice could reflect that they had some strategies behind them to help them get through their challenges and live in a higher level of optimism. And that was associated with much less stress. And that's really because we know how significant the effects of stress are for creating suffering, but also for potentially harming some of your fertility progress because of the way that it attunes the nervous system for a hormone balance that's all about survival and not so much about lying down and making love and make a baby. So in other words, when couples are looking at their fertility challenges and they have hope, then everything feels better, and feeling better and feeling good corresponds to a more pregnancy receptive body state and nervous system state. We can't say that if you have a glass half full, you're optimistic and you maintain a level of hope that we can guarantee a positive outcome. But I have hope for each of you and hope that you have hope for yourselves. There is absolutely no reason to give up hope. There's always room for informed hope. And I think that that can be filled with an authentic and legitimate context and backdrop to everything that you're choosing to do, every choice that you make to boost your well-being. It does tap into belief. If you know Bruce Lipton, he's a leader in how biology becomes belief, and he's actually a cellular biologist. And what I want to show you is that conversely, belief becomes biology. So there is a corresponding physiology that reflects your beliefs. That's going to come on board for you in terms of the neurotransmitters, in terms of the way that your brain interprets things, perhaps because of your faith and what we think of as mental or emotional well-being. These factors transform and inform your physiology, and that's been proven. So every action, every belief, every statement that you say out loud or in your mind to yourself, or the thoughts that you have, or the pictures and images that you create, will have a corresponding response in your cells, because there are neurotransmitters and hormones attached to every one of them. So you can start creating a more fertile environment in your body that corresponds to healthy hormone balance. When you generate hopeful images, hopeful thinking, and hopeful actions, you essentially prove to yourself that this can happen. And you're creating an imprint in your body of embodiment of what it feels like to be closer and closer, or to be holding your baby in your arms in reality. It is possible. And when you're coming from that place of hope, your brain is inherently more open, or perhaps even seeking alternate solutions, which, there's an infinite number of outcomes in this universe that we could experience. So when we can identify what's going on in terms of your level of informed hope, we will increase your chances of seeing and seeking what those right next steps are for you. That's going to lead you forward to that embodiment of the experience of having the fertility and the pregnancy and the child that you want. So I wanted to highlight to you the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, which is also known as the frequency illusion. So this is kind of like, okay, if you imagine the vehicle that you drive right now, mine is a Chevrolet Impala, okay? And this car was given to me by my dad, and my dad had purchased it from his cousin, and he drove it for a while. But before any of that happened, I would have had no idea what a Chevrolet Impala looked like. I would not have been able to describe it, nor would I have been able to pick one out of the parking lot. But now that it is the car that I routinely drive, I see my car's twin everywhere. And sometimes I'm walking toward a car in the parking lot, and I'm walking toward the car that is not mine because it looks just like my car. And I've kind of found myself thinking, oh my gosh, there's Chevrolet Impalas everywhere. However, that is a frequency illusion. It wasn't as if the day that I got a 2003 Chev Impala and started driving it, they suddenly flooded the market with that model or my city. But it feels like that. And your brain you can certainly catch your brain thinking that everybody has your car. And so the same thing happens with fertility. Imagine you're seeing a pattern: not pregnant, month 1, not pregnant, month 2, not pregnant, month 3. Your brain is now thinking not pregnant. And so what we want to do is start to shift what those thoughts, emotions, and sensations are, and separate them from being on autopilot for you through the exercises I've given you. You can separate it out of autopilot because you can start to choose that informed hope sensation. And you can choose an embodied emotional experience that corresponds to what you really want, as if it's already happened. So we're going to benefit from the power of positive delusion. There's no reason why we can't start programming our own beliefs and ones that we choose for the positive. So here's how we're going to move our autopilot, auto-reaction brains from creating meaning around statements like I can't, around it has to be on a certain timeline, or else, around one specific outcome such as a boy, or one specific outcome such as it has to be twins, or a specific outcome even that it has to be both of our biological child. We are actually in a way limiting the joy and the possibility that we could be enjoying in our lives by creating these criteria. This isn't to say that you can't be specific about what you want, but I want you to start shifting into the emotional experience of that instead of the fact level. For example, reliance on a timeline. So if you believe that you have to have your baby by the time you're 38, and it doesn't happen, then we're going to go into all kinds of stressful emotions and neurotransmitter states. And your brain might stop looking for that pregnancy after age 38. Meanwhile, you could have a perfectly healthy, wonderful pregnancy and a great life starting at 39, 40, 41, 42 or older, right? So shifting from that small, contained, contracted, or restricted model to opening up to possibility. I choose is a great statement to replace when you feel like you can't, to trust that this outcome has already happened. In some level, you already know what it feels like to hold that child, to have that pregnancy, to have that joy, that completeness that you're looking for in your family. And you have a level of okayness no matter what outcome is. And that's a huge goal for me in this program, is that you're able to bring the biggest, brightest, most badass, bold version of yourself into your journey of creating and conceiving and mothering yourself. This is a very expansive state to be in, and it's one of receptivity, which is ultimately the ideal place to be entering into your next attempt at conception. We've talked about gratitude in the program before. Here I want to focus on appreciation. It's fairly similar. What you appreciate appreciates. So here are some examples of gratitude statements around our body, and you can refer back to the exercises I've given you to help you create those. When you're not feeling great, when you're feeling frustrated, stuck, down, depressed, anxious, it's really helpful to come up with 3 gratitudes. In fact, my husband and I tried this just today when we were out for our walk, and he was mentioning that he thought his mood was lower than he thought it should be for today. He wasn't really sure why. I said, let's just think of 3 things we're grateful for. And we had such a good walk, and it transformed both of our mood almost immediately. The additional exercise I have proposed for you is to create your positive conception story. So to write your fertility journey story with a positive outcome as if it's already happened. The most challenging part of this exercise is the vulnerability that you might feel and the needing to release timelines to get the most benefit out of this exercise. Again, really, restriction to a timeline really restricts possibility. And what you want are the feelings. What you really want are the feelings, the experiences. It could be the feeling of joy, pride, completeness, love. Those have no concept of time. So release the timelines and focus on the emotion. And simply at bedtime and as you're waking up, because those are times, especially while your eyes are still closed, where your subconscious brain is the most susceptible or suggestible, then for a couple of minutes, meditate on the emotion of your ideal fertility story, okay, once you have it written out. An affirmation for you is something wonderful can happen today. I love that one. Another is, I do enough, I am enough. I like to have you practice these with breathing. So inhale on a I do enough. And exhale on an I am enough. And you can feel that energy shift right then and there. Along with your exercises, I would love to provide this quote for you and leave you with this, as it is such a blessing. Marianne Williamson has said, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We are born to manifest the glory of God that's within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others." It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be with you in this fertility empowerment journey. I look forward to your questions. I look forward to your ahas. Please do share them as you feel led to within our closed and intimate private fertility community. You're among friends there, and your expressions of all of these ahas and questions and things that you have learned and things that you're wondering about also helps others and lifts them up too. So I do appreciate your contributions. If you have any questions to add, please do so. We will respond to them. And I look forward to hearing about all of your successes in your fertility journey and beyond. Thank you.